Have you felt a strange tension with someone who acts kind, but something underneath feels off? Especially as we grow older, we become more sensitive to subtle shifts in how people treat us. And sadly, not all of those shifts come from love. Some come from envy, from bitterness, even from buried resentment that finally surfaces when they think we're too tired, too slow, or too old to notice. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But the opposite is true as well. What people say and do around us often reveals their unconscious truth about how they really feel. And as we age, those hidden truths become harder to ignore. In today's video, we're going to look at 7 quiet signs that someone around you may secretly resent or even hate you, but mask it with politeness or worse, passive-aggressive care. These signs are subtle, but they're important because if you can spot them early, you protect not just your heart, but your dignity, your time, and your peace. So if you're over 60, 70, or even 80, and you've started noticing people treating you just a little differently, a little colder, or a little more dismissively, this video is for you. You're not imagining things, and you don't have to put up with it. Sign 1. Coldness in small moments. There's a certain kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels pointed. Like when you walk into a room and someone stops talking, or when you make a light-hearted comment and it lands with a thud. No laughter, no eye contact, just that blank pause that makes you second-guess whether you said something wrong. These aren't just little awkward moments. They're symptoms of something deeper. Carl Jung often wrote that what people withhold tells you as much as what they express. And in aging, those withheld words, the unspoken ones, can cut deeper than insults. You may notice that someone who used to check in often now rarely does. They respond to your texts or calls with delay or disinterest. They act busy when you're around, avoid lingering in conversation, or don't ask how you're doing anymore. On the surface, it may look like they're just preoccupied, but in truth, coldness is a quiet form of emotional distancing. And the reason it's so common in older age is that some people, knowingly or not, start to devalue others who can't offer them something in return, whether that's status, money, or attention. There was an older gentleman named Frank, 81, who used to go fishing every weekend with his nephew. But once Frank retired, sold his boat, and wasn't the fun uncle with gear anymore, his nephew stopped coming around. No fight, no drama, just silence. That silence told Frank everything he needed to know. The real wound here is emotional invisibility. When someone close starts treating you as if your presence is unnecessary, like your voice holds no weight or your stories bore them. It's often rooted in unspoken judgment, and more often than not, it stems from resentment they haven't had the courage to express. What's important is that you don't internalize this as your fault. The older you get, the more you must protect your energy. That includes knowing when to stop reaching out to people who meet your kindness with indifference. Coldness is not always passive. Sometimes it's calculated, and it's a clear sign that someone doesn't see your presence as valuable anymore. Trust that feeling. It's your wisdom speaking, and if someone is showing you this kind of quiet distance, believe them the first time. Sign 2. Subtle undermining and passive remarks. Not all hatred wears a scowl. Sometimes it comes wrapped in politeness, a smile, or what people like to call just being honest. You'll hear it in the tone they use when they comment on your choices. You still drive at your age? Or, oh, I didn't expect you to know how to use that app. You remember that wrong. I was there. These comments may seem small, but they leave a sting that lingers. And when they start piling up, they paint a picture of someone who doesn't admire you, but quietly resents you. Carl Jung believed that the shadow, the hidden, often unconscious part of a person, holds emotions people are too ashamed to admit. As you grow older and wiser, your very existence can stir these shadows in others, especially if your presence reminds them of their own aging limitations or failures. Their discomfort may come out in the form of snide remarks, subtle corrections, or jokes at your expense, but make no mistake, this isn't just teasing, it's emotional erosion. Picture Linda, 78, who had a lifelong friend named Janet. They'd meet for lunch every week, but as Linda started to age more gracefully, keeping active, learning to paint, smiling more, Janet began to take little jabs. You're still bothering with makeup? Your son bought you that? Must be trying to make up for something. Must be nice to still have energy to be out and about. Linda would laugh it off at first, but each comment chipped away at the warmth between them until what used to be friendship began to feel like rivalry. This is the danger of passive hostility. It doesn't announce itself like a storm, it drips like a faucet, slowly filling a room with tension. These people aren't interested in hurting you directly. That would be too obvious, too risky. Instead, they try to undermine your sense of self little by little, hoping you won't notice. But you do. You always do. And here's the thing. They want you to doubt yourself. They want you to shrink just enough so they can feel bigger. That's not friendship. That's not love. That's a quiet form of sabotage. Jung warned about this dynamic. When people cannot face their own inner chaos, they project it onto those who seem content, confident, or free. That's why they can't celebrate your peace. It reminds them of their own unrest. So if someone close to you always seems to have something sarcastic to say, always needs to correct your memory, or always highlights your flaws under the mask of just kidding, trust that pattern. It's not light-hearted teasing. It's contempt trying to stay hidden. You deserve people who speak life into you, not question your every move. Protect your energy and remember, what they're saying isn't about you. It's about what they haven't resolved in themselves. Birthday. They don't ask how your doctor visit went, even though they knew. They don't check in after you lost a pet or a spouse or your footing on a tough day. And over time, that silence, it speaks louder than words ever could. Carl Jung believed that what we neglect reveals our priorities. When someone continuously fails to show up for you, not just in grand gestures, but in the little everyday ways, they're sending a message. You are not a priority. Your well-being doesn't move them. Your pain doesn't stir them. And while that may not feel like hatred in the loud, dramatic sense, it is a form of emotional abandonment. And abandonment, when repeated, can feel a lot like resentment. Let's talk about Robert, 82. When his wife passed, the house fell quiet. Friends came by, neighbors dropped off meals, but his niece, whom he'd helped raise, didn't call. Not that day, not the week after, not even when he gently reached out. "Oh, sorry, Uncle Rob. I've just been so busy." She wasn't too busy to post on social media or go out with friends or watch every new show. but she was too busy to check on the man who bought her school books and walked her down the aisle. That's not forgetfulness. That's a choice. When people care, they find a way. And when they don't, it's not always because they're evil or malicious. Sometimes it's because they're quietly withdrawing their affection, withdrawing their effort, withdrawing their respect. They're letting the relationship dry up, not because they forgot to water it, but because they didn't want to anymore. Jung would say that when a person cannot love a part of themselves, like their own aging, dependence, or loneliness, they may begin to reject anyone who reminds them of it, including you. And so, they pull away. Stop checking in. Stop caring. Because being around you forces them to face parts of life they haven't made peace with. It's not just neglect, it's resistance. And it hurts because being ignored can feel more painful than being yelled at. At least when someone yells, you know you matter enough to stir emotion. But silence, it feels like you've become invisible, like your presence has turned into an inconvenience. You deserve better. You deserve people who don't forget you exist when things get hard. You deserve warmth that doesn't vanish the moment you need it. And if someone keeps disappearing when you're down, but shows up when they need something from you, believe that pattern. Love doesn't hide when times get tough. Hidden resentment does. And when you feel that cold distance from someone who once felt close, remember this. It's not your fault. They can't face your aging, your vulnerability, or your strength. That's their shadow to deal with, not yours to carry. Sign 4. Backhanded compliments and subtle put-downs. One of the most telling signs that someone harbors resentment, especially as you age, isn't in what they say, but how they say it. They might offer a compliment, but it's coated in vinegar. You're looking good for your age. I wish I had time to nap like you do. It's nice that you don't worry about keeping up anymore. On the surface, these might seem harmless, even polite, but underneath, there's a quiet jab, a message that says, you're lesser now. You're not what you used to be. Carl Jung wrote often about the shadow, the hidden, often denied part of ourselves that holds anger, envy, and insecurity. People who secretly resent your presence, your wisdom, or your age will often project that discomfort through veiled insults. They don't call you slow, but they make a point of walking ahead. They don't say you're forgetful, but they repeat instructions as if you can't keep up. These actions are not neutral. They're power plays dressed up as helpfulness. Let me tell you about Linda, 68. She was once the life of every gathering, smart, witty, kind. But over time, her daughter-in-law began making little jokes at her expense during family dinners. We better speak louder. Grandma's memory doesn't work after 6 p.m. Everyone laughed. Linda forced a smile, but the pattern continued. Always a jab about her age, her style, her pace. No direct insults, just quiet erosion of dignity, week after week. Eventually, Linda stopped going to the dinners, not because she didn't love her family, but because being around them meant bracing herself for another little jab. She told me it wasn't the words that hurt the most. It was knowing that no one stepped in to stop them. See, the shadow often leaks out in sarcasm, in jokes, in just teasing. But the unconscious mind is smart. It knows exactly how to let the resentment out in ways that won't get called out directly. This is how emotional hostility hides in plain sight. And when it's happening to you, you start to doubt yourself. Am I being too sensitive? Maybe they didn't mean it that way. But listen, if something stings, it matters. If someone consistently leaves you feeling small, unimportant, or outdated, it's not a coincidence. That's their issue spilling into your space. Jung would tell us that what we fail to deal with in ourselves, we project onto others. So, if someone is uneasy with aging, powerlessness, or mortality, they may cope by mocking those who embody it. It's easier than facing their own reflection in the mirror. You are not here to be anyone's emotional punching bag. Aging is not shameful. Slowing down is not a failure. Needing rest, needing help, or needing patience does not make you a burden. And any person who makes you feel otherwise, whether in obvious jabs or passive slights, may be carrying a resentment they haven't admitted to, even to themselves. Believe that the shadow only grows when left unacknowledged, and in relationships, it shows up in these quiet, painful dismissals. You have the right to feel proud of your beliefs, of your habits, of your daily joys. You've earned them through years of living, failing, learning, and surviving. No one gets to belittle that, not even someone close. True love doesn't mock. It honors, even when it doesn't understand. And if someone in your life regularly undermines the things that light you up, it may be time to step back and ask why they need to dim your light to feel comfortable in their own skin. You deserve better than that. You deserve space to be yourself fully and unapologetically. Final thoughts. Getting older isn't just about wrinkles or slower steps. It's about becoming more aware, more attuned to the quiet patterns of how others treat us. And sometimes the most painful realizations aren't about the body, but about the people we once trusted with our hearts. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That truth matters now more than ever, because if we're not paying attention to these hidden signs, the jokes that sting, the help that humiliates, the silence that isolates, we risk normalizing behavior that eats away at our peace. If you recognized even one of these 7 signs in your own life, you're not overreacting. You're waking up, and that's powerful. It means you still have the strength to draw boundaries, protect your heart, and walk away from people who may share your last name, but not your well-being. The wisdom that comes with age is not just about what we know, it's about what we no longer tolerate. We don't owe anyone blind forgiveness. What we owe ourselves is dignity, clarity, and room to breathe. And remember this, being kind doesn't mean being blind. You can love people from a distance. You can forgive without returning to the fire. You can stand tall, even if it means standing alone. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.